though I wasn't able to compete at the Olympics, like I still had UCLA to look forward to. Like it was almost like learning how to count my blessings and learn how to be grateful for what I have instead of what I didn't do. And I think that's again where I turned to music a ton when I was injured, and I was like songwriting, like Taylor Swifting it up with my guitar that I had.
I said the right thing with perfect timing. There's a side of me you never met. Let me introduce you. Nice to meet you. It's the bad bitch me you've never seen before.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another one of our convos. Today joining us is another very special guest, PENG. Thank you for joining us, and excited to talk to you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so I mean, first of all, like we always try to like introduce our audience and our fans, so that maybe not familiar with you. Can you kind of like talk about a little bit of your background, your upbringing, and like kind of how you got to this point?
Yeah. Wow. I feel like I've lived like 10 lives before where I am right now, but I pretty much grew up in the gymnastics world. I was a athlete through and through growing up. But before I got into athletics, I always had a love for music and the arts and acting and all that stuff. So I actually would do like acting and music simultaneously, but pretty much my whole life revolved around gymnastics. I was on the Canadian national team since I was 12. I was set on my first international assignment when I was 12 also. And ever since then, I've been to world championships. I was the honorary Olympic team captain for Canada, 2012 Olympics. And then I went on to compete in NCAA at UCLA, where we won a national championship. So that was really cool. And after school, like I had to wait in order to do entertainment. So I always knew I was going to get into that field. And I pretty much, after I retired and hung up my leotard, I was full force with music and acting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, gymnastics kind of your first thing, and like that was maybe like a big part of what we're talking about. Is such a big part of your like background, big part of your life. So like, when did you first start kind of doing gymnastics, and then like kind of talk about like the Olympics and like that whole experience?
Yeah, so I first started doing gymnastics when I was 4 years old. I had like most gymnasts, we all have a lot of energy and we're really hyper. So my parents thought, if they enrolled me in gymnastics, I would come home tired, but that was not what happened. I was like climbing the couches, trying to do flips and all that stuff. And then actually when I was 7, I hated gymnastics, so I quit. And that's when I did a lot of like theater camp, tennis camp, like any camp you can think of, I was there. We did like cooking camp, pottery camp. My parents just like to keep us busy. But during when I got back into gymnastics, I was 8 years old. We moved to a different city. So I'm from Toronto, Canada. I grew up in London, Ontario. And then we moved to the city when I was 8. And my mom was like, "Oh, do you want to try gymnastics again?" And I said, "Only if it's for fun." Like I only want to do it if it was for fun. I got bumped up to the competitive gymnastics program when I was 5, which I don't even know how that's possible. But I was not a happy 5-year-old trying to do conditioning. Like I just wanted to flip. But when I was 8 years old, I finally got back into it. I started competing and started getting routines and learning a lot more skills. And I was having so much fun in the gym. And that's kind of where like my love for gymnastics grew a lot. And so it really just led me to, I had a lot of injuries along the way. There was a lot of ups and downs during my journey. And the end point for gymnastics was always the 2012 Olympics. I was a year too young for the 2008 Olympics, unfortunately. So I wasn't allowed to go. I was competing as a senior in Canada at that time, but I wasn't old enough to go. So yeah, I had to wait for 2012. I ended up getting an injury, like injury after injury, and actually ended up stopped doing gymnastics in high school for a year. I had a really bad back injury and was not allowed to run, jump, or do anything. So I went to school with like a rolly backpack and all that stuff. And that's when I really got more into music, acting, and anything that wasn't physical. And it was really cool because during my gymnastics career, like how I was able to get to the Olympics was the balance of both. So I got back into doing gymnastics again in grade 11 because in grade 10, I had to take a year off of all physical activity. And I didn't think I was coming back to do gymnastics at all. But oddly enough, I was offered a full scholarship to UCLA while I was injured. And my coach was pretty much saying at UCLA was like, you know, I believe you can come back. It's a lot different than elite gymnastics. Elite gymnastics is a lot more rigorous. So when I had that year off, I came back to do gymnastics. I got my skills back really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting. Like after I was able to condition my new body because I grew like 5 inches during my injury. I was able to get back into the gym, and I pretty much was like, I think the Olympics could be in my cards again. So I took a year off of UCLA. Like I deferred my first year at UCLA. And during that time after high school, I pretty much just solely focused on competing in gymnastics. And I would do like, I see again, still my music every single week to just balance and get my head out of the gym. And the Olympics was a very unique experience for me. I was Canada's top athlete going into 2012 because we were on a point system. Okay. So I had the most points to go to be on the team. Unfortunately, at trials, I tore my ACL. So my whole world just stopped. And it was really interesting because Team Canada still wanted me to compete bars, which is not like using your leg, but I was 19. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to like compete on a torn ACL. Like it's not really, my world was shattered, but I also was like, I have the rest of my life. Like I'm so young and all that stuff. And so Team Canada was so nice. They were like, we still want you to come. We still think your leadership skills and your personality and qualities can help the team. So they brought me as their team captain. So my Olympics was a very bittersweet experience because obviously I wanted to compete. And, it was hard watching, sitting there and watching from the sidelines, but it was really cool. And I think it really developed me into a different person because I realized like some things are not solely based on talent. It's based on personality, the relationships you make, the sportsmanship that you have and all that stuff. And that can still get you to where your end goal is. And so again, it was a very bittersweet experience at the Olympics, but it was so cool that I was still able to be a part of it. Like they gave me all the gear. I had like a little C on my gear for captain, and like it was so nice. And then the girls wore, I used to wear white flowers in my hair when I competed, and they surprised me and all wore white flowers in honor of like me. So that was really, and I had no idea. Like I almost cried. I was like, it was a very bittersweet experience, the Olympics, but it was so cool to be a part of it. And I'm just so honored to be a part of it because again, in gymnastics, that was my lifelong goal, was to go to the Olympics and win a medal. But unfortunately I wasn't able to compete.
Yeah, it's gotta be really hard, especially like in that sport the Olympics is still kind of like, the ultimate goal for a lot of people, and like to have to sit out from the first one because you weren't like old enough yet. And then like finally get to that point and then kind of go through that injury and whatnot. Like, so kind of what did you learn from that experience? And like how did that kind of help you keep going? Like, obviously you kept competing, you went to UCLA, you still kind of did everything after that. So like, how would you kind of say like that moment and like that adversity kind of helps you going forward?
I had the best support system. Like my parents are amazing. I think I've always battled through injuries and always had, setbacks in my athletic career, as I'm sure most athletes do. But my parents were always like, if we can't do one thing, we can do another thing. And I think that's where, even though I wasn't able to compete at the Olympics, like I still had UCLA to look forward to. Like it was almost like learning how to count my blessings and learn how to be grateful for what I have instead of what I didn't do. And I think that's again where I turned to music a ton when I was injured, and I was like songwriting, like Taylor Swifting it up with my guitar that I had. And I was like, just writing a bunch of like it was again, like kind of like a personal diary and my way of just doing therapy. Like therapy was not a thing when I was an athlete. Like mental health was not a thing. And so, again, I just had a great support system. Like I remember my physiotherapist like cried for me, like when she had to tell me that I tore my ACL and I was not going to be able to compete. Like it was a tough experience, but my support system was the best, and that really helped me get through it. And just knowing I was able to go to UCLA and knowing that, you know, it wasn't the end all be all. Like I think when you're a young athlete, and especially the Olympics, it only happens every 4 years. And I wasn't able to compete in 2008, but 2012 was the Olympics. Like my coaches, you hype it up and all that stuff. But, you know, my parents were like, there's always another Olympics if you really want to go. And there's 2016, like you can always talk to your coaches about like doing that. And so they really helped me to kind of maneuver my, like at that time, deep, dark hole. But again, I knew that gymnastics was my end all be all, because before gymnastics, I loved acting and I loved music, and I knew I had a lot of things to look forward to. Because I didn't even want to do college gymnastics. So like I wanted to do the Olympics, be done, do acting, music. So that was kind of, UCLA was just one of those things where I was like, oh, I can go to LA, and, you know, college gymnastics just looked so fun. Like I just never really had that in mind. So, my support system, my coaches and my parents were, they really helped me get through it and really helped me navigate it, like through all those dark times, but it has helped me be able to get through some other dark times.
Did you ever consider, I guess 2016 and going for Olympics again?
I did. I started training. I was at UCLA. I told my coaches like a year before, I was like, I want to go to 2016. And they were fully supportive of it. I had 2 ACL surgeries because, first I tore my ACL, then the ACL surgery that I had failed. So I had to sit out a whole other year, at school. So I think my coaches knew, like, you know, it was going to be a pretty tough grind, because for those first 2 years after the Olympics, I was out with an ACL. So I had 2 years to prepare, and I was training. Unfortunately, it was like, my body was like, no, you're not doing this. So like I had a meniscus tear, and then it was like my thumb tore. And then it was just like, it was just injury after injury. And I'm like, you know what? I think the Olympics are not in my cards. Like I did have that dream of going, but I also know, like, I wasn't that upset when I kind of decided I'm not going for 2016, because I think my body was just telling me like, you just can't hold up like that. And especially compete in college and do that at the same time. But I also knew, like, it was interesting. When I was 10, I got really good at gymnastics. And I think everyone was putting it in my head that it's like, you can go to the Olympics, like you can win a medal for Canada. And I never thought of that when I was younger, before 10. So, and I never watched gymnastics when I was younger either on TV. It just was one of those things I fell in love with. And then it was kind of like, oh, you can do this. It was like a little tease. So I pretty much, you know, was like, I don't think the Olympics is in my cards. I can just still have the best college experience. And it was interesting because I didn't necessarily want to continue gymnastics after 2012. Like it was a battlefield a little bit in gymnastics for me because of injury. And it was like back and forth with, do I love this? Do I not like this? Like I'm getting injured. I'm just sitting out. Like, so, you know, I thought about it. Long story short.
I mean, you did continue to win. You won 2018 at UCLA, right?
Yes.
You won the championships. And I think I saw a video, like you had like a perfect 10 and everything. So like, that was kind of like,
I had, during the national championships, my last year at UCLA was the best year I've had. It was the best team. Like my teammates were amazing. Like I wouldn't have come back for a 6th year if it wasn't for my teammates. And in my 5th year at UCLA, I kind of fell back in love with the sport. I wanted to quit when I was in my senior year. I was like, I'm over this. I'm getting injured. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. But in my 5th year, because I had committed to 5 years, so like in my 5th year, I ended up doing 2 events, and there was a new wind of girls. Like I was in a different leadership position, and it was so much fun. Like my coaches were like, what about a sixth year? And I'm like, absolutely not. Until mid-season, my fifth year, I was like, okay, maybe a sixth year would be that bad. And they actually had saved my scholarship for me, knowing or hoping that I would come back. And I did. And the sixth year, like at national championships was a sweet spot. I only competed 2 events. I got 2 perfect 10s on both my events and won a national championship. I'm like, this is the best way I could have ended my career. Like when I think about that moment, I get nervous. I'm like, there's no way I'd be able to do that again. But 2 perfect 10s, won a national championship. It felt like the perfect ending to what a crazy gymnastics story I had. And I was able to happily close that chapter in my life and move forward with what I've, had been longing to do when I was a little kid. And again, gymnastics has just taught me so much. And like, I'm so thankful to have been through all that.
Yeah, it's like kind of a perfect kind of movie ending right there, like the end of capstone, everything. Like you walk out with 2 perfect 10s and like national championship. Like, so I mean, that's pretty dumb milk.
Yeah, people don't believe it. And then I'm like, oh no, it happened.
So you're not like completely done with gymnastics. You're also like co-hosting as like Gold Over America tour or something like that.
Yes. So I'm done competing in gymnastics. I'm done kind of like, do training per se, but I'm still involved with the gymnastics community and world. I think it's just, at the end of the day, it's like my comfort zone, my family. Yeah. And in the athletic world, it's just my family. Like I grew up in the gym pretty much. And, the Gold Over America tour, I was hosting and dancing. So it was a different side of, what I loved about gymnastics. Like part of the reason why I loved gymnastics was competing and being able to, I call it performing, even though you are competing, but like I'm performing in front of like 20,000 people when I'm competing at like world championships or Pan Am Games, or like, for me, the bigger the crowd, the better. Like I loved competing in front of a big crowd. So I think it was awesome, and it's cool that I was able to have the opportunity to go on tour with Simone Biles and Jade Carey and all these other Olympians, because it was like almost being able to bring the fun back to the sport, and just seeing all those little kids and little girls. And I remember being one of those little girls. You look up to these athletes, and it kind of got back into my head. Like we are role models at the end of the day. Like it's so cool to connect with that community again. And I love being able to give back to the sport because it gave me so much. And I would hope to be able to like keep inspiring someone, even though I'm not a gymnast anymore, because gymnastics is so short-lived. So I still hope to inspire people that you can still do big things after gymnastics, and like gymnastics isn't an end all be all. And I think I always grew up like that. And you're not defined as a gymnast, you're defined as a person. And that was a big thing growing up as a gymnast, because that's all I was known for, was a gymnast. And I couldn't, again, my support system was amazing to be able to have me, like my coach at UCLA, for me to sing the national anthem at UCLA games. Like, that's so cool. Like other athletes don't do that because it's like, you have to be a gymnast 24/7. Like you're an athlete 24/7. But for me, like I needed balance.
Okay. And I guess the Gold Over America tour, is it still ongoing? Like you're still closing? Like
no, it was a 2.5-month tour. So it was September to November. So we just ended a month ago, actually, November 4th. We ended a month ago. It was so fun. Like it was such a cool experience to be on a tour bus. And like, again, for me, music is a big thing. So that was like, it was so cool to like, for me to hopefully one day like go on tour, like for music, but being on tour for gymnastics was also a whole cool new experience. And I remember my old roommate, Jordan Weber, she was the 2012 medalist as well. And I remember her going on tour when we roomed together. So it was cool to be like, hear all her stories and then kind of like be living what she went through. And it's, again, gymnastics is so small. So it's really cool to be around a bunch of gymnasts. We all have like kind of a very mutual respect for each other, because we all know we have similar stories.
Yeah. And like I said, you were on that tour also with like Simone Biles, who's considered, largely considered like kind of like one of the greatest of all time in gymnastics. And do you have any experiences with her, and what was kind of like working with her and like on the tour?
Yeah, it was really cool to see her like in her natural habitat. And like, I think the gym is her playground. And it's really awesome to see her like with her other teammates. And it was really fun. She has a big personality. So it was like, again, cool to see her behind closed doors and like all that stuff. But it was awesome to, again, just see all the legends, like all the Olympians and what they're like, because you see something on TV and then sometimes you're like, oh, maybe they're not a certain way that you thought, or like, there's certain things that, I just would have never expected. And it was cool to just be in that environment. And it was really awesome to, be able to create relationships with all these athletes that I never grew up with because I was Canadian. So, yeah. And it was cool to, one of my old Canadian teammates was on this tour as well. And she's now been to 4 Olympics and, she's kind of like the Simone Biles of Canada. And it was cool to reconnect with her. And I hadn't seen her in years because, our lives were just so different. And it was awesome to be back with some of the girls and really learn, guide the girls. And I was the oldest one there. So it was fun to be able to get to know them in a whole different way.
Cool. And speaking about your music, like you said, like it's always kind of been an outlet for you. And like, especially speaking about like athletes and finding like a post career and everything, it's like a lot harder for like a lot of people, but you had already this outlet kind of set up. So like, were you already kind of recording songs or you were just like writing and then like just came to it later?
Yeah, I was a wannabe artist when I was an athlete. I wasn't allowed to audition. I wasn't allowed to actually like put anything out because of NCAA. We didn't have NIL, so name, likeness. I wasn't allowed to do any of that. And Peng Peng Lee is kind of a stage name for me, and it's my gymnastics name. So I compete as it. That is my name like this. And so I had to hold off on all auditions. I had to hold off on music, but I had hosted jam sessions a lot during college. So I'd get all my friends together. We'd bring all of our instruments and we'd host like jam sessions. And one of my friends wanted to get into production and we were kind of trying to figure it out. Like I didn't know how to write or create a song necessarily. Like I knew how to write songs, but I didn't know how to actually do it like with the time and the tempo and all that stuff. And so he actually took a music class at UCLA and he was able to get in the studio and we would do like song covers and do all that kind of fun stuff. I actually wrote an original song and auditioned for Spring Sing at UCLA. And I was just proud of myself. I didn't get it, or didn't make it through the second round, but I was just proud of myself that I did it, especially like no athlete even dares to try to do Spring Sing. It's like one of those things where it's like everyone kind of stays in their pocket. Does that make sense? Because we also don't have time. So I honestly started really seriously songwriting during like shortly after COVID. Okay. Because I was able to connect with producers and songwriters and really understand like what a session is, like what it means to get into the studio. Because I know my mom knew that my brother and I loved music, and she got us a Groupon to go to a studio when I was like in grade 11 or grade 12 or something. And studios are like elaborate. They bring engineers and like producers and all that stuff, and it's just me and my brother. We have no idea what we're doing. It sounded so bad. Like it was like I think it came with an audio engineer, and he was like, what do you guys want to do? We're like, I don't know. So it was, again, like I think I've always been intrigued by that, and it was cool that again, right when I graduated, like I was pretty much, I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I just don't know how.
Yeah, Groupon studio sessions is hilarious. Like those are definitely the days of Groupons when like I don't really hear about Groupon that much anymore, but that's definitely back then. Like everything was a Groupon. Oh, I got a Groupon for that. The Groupon studio session. That's a first for me. I never heard that one.
My mom found it all. Like I'm telling you, like my parents put us in every single camp, and we had an interest. Like my mom would roll with it, and she would like Google, like if you have an interest in. I loved singing, so she put me in singing lessons. Like when I was 6, I think I did a theater camp when I was 7 or 8 and got invited to do like a mini Broadway like theater show for kids. It was like a kids theater show. And my parents had like pay to come in, and like again, my mom and dad, we had an interest. Like my brother went to Lego camp. He did like we did all the camps. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's great. You got that support, like, hey, I might be interested in, like, all right, let's go see. Like, that's always a great initiative to get you to see if like this is what you really wanted to do. So like, obviously music, gymnastics, a little different, but did you kind of have nerves when you were first putting your songs out, like getting out to public? Like, how was that? Like, how was that feeling?
Yeah, I had nerves going into the studio the first time because I think, okay, I had a really hard time after I retired. I was so happy, but when you're an athlete, you are taught you make everything happen. You are like 100% dedicated. Like it's very, it's a lot on you. And so I think when I went to the studio the first time, I was so nervous. I'm like, I have to earn my way to be here. Like I haven't earned it yet. I got to prove myself. So like, if I was hitting wrong notes and I felt like wasn't sure what I was doing, like I would kind of go through a deep rabbit hole. And I had been, I would say, at the top of my game in gymnastics for a fairly long time because I was at my peak before UCLA. So I was 6 years at UCLA, kind of like I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at in gymnastics. So it was hard to go into a new space and kind of be at the bottom of the totem pole and like really having to prove myself. And I went into vocal training. I was like, how am I going to get the best? Like, again, it was a very athletic mindset. How am I going to be the best me possible in this field? But I know like in music, it's not like gymnastics where you can make everything happen. And I think that I learned that very quickly. It's like, there's a bit of luck involved. Like he got the social. Yeah. And social media was, I call it like a happy accident. Like I did it to get out of gymnastics, and social media really helped me to kind of bring my personality and showcase what I can do like outside of gymnastics. Like I didn't tell any of my athlete friends. I remember when I first got a comment like, oh my God, you can do a backflip. I was like, I made it. Like I made it out. And it was like, again, it was a very interesting roller coaster. And it was a lot of like redefining who I was and being okay with an outcome that I didn't have my mind set on. And I think, the Olympics, it was a similar feeling, but it came a little more often in music and acting because it's like you're constantly working towards you don't know what. But I think when I put out my first song and I did my first music video, Pretty Please, like I knew I wanted to do that one because gymnastics for me was a big part of my life. I'm, older and more mature now, and I wanted to put something out that kind of shocked everyone with like, the explicit lyrics and just like kind of like the tude and all that stuff, just because I love writing those songs because it's something I would never say to someone, but like, this is the attitude I had during when I was competing. Like, and also too, like, this is kind of the person I would go to, like when I'm on the competition floor. And it's very, it's just really cool to bring that side of me to life and be able to like dance and all that stuff. So when I was working towards the music video, I'm like, I want to do a music video. I want to dance. And it was, all my friends were so supportive. Like all those people in that audience or you see in the music video, they're all my homies. Like except the dancers, they were new to me. And it was so awesome to be able to kind of like network with new people, but all the background people in the boxing arena pretty much were like, some of them were my teammates, like some were my social media friends. Like it was so awesome. And I was getting ready, and that whole day, like the night before, I felt like I was about to compete. Like it kind of brought back that like rush for me. Yeah. And when I was filming, I was like, guys, this feels like my Olympics. Like I compete at world championships, and it was just so different. Like I was excited to compete, but this felt like a dream come true. Like I would say, I think when I was younger, I'm like, oh, my dream is to go to the Olympics. But I also think like my coaches were like, you can go to the Olympics and compete and win a medal. Like it just sounded so exciting. But I think deep down inside, I feel like subconsciously, like, or I've always known I wanted to do like music and acting. So that day I literally told everyone, I'm like, this feels like my Olympics. Like this feels like how people feel like when they go to the Olympics and that their dream came true. Like this feels like I'm living a dream come true.
Yeah. I mean, that's gotta be a great feeling, especially after having such a long kind of career and like background in gymnastics to find like this other passion and love for something that's like just as equal, if not even more, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very hard thing to do for like a lot of athletes that were at the highest levels to find like that second thing that brings that same kind of feeling. So
100%.
So I guess who are some of your influences and like some like favorite songs and artists, and like who do you kind of pull from to create this, your musical identity?
Yeah, it's cool. I think like, again, after I retired, music related people who really inspired me were some of my teammates. A lot of them went into stunt doubling, and it was cool to just see them like thrive in something. Yeah. And like for me, stunts I would have loved to do, but like my body wouldn't hold up. Like I can do like the mini stunts, but they're like, crashing and like doing all that stuff. But they really influenced me and inspired me to really go after it. And, I've talked to people who were gymnasts, and they were like agents and managers, and everyone's telling me it's going to be hard, but like, I knew I've always wanted it. And so musically, I'm a person who likes to try everything. And I think people who've influenced me a lot is like The Rock. He's really influenced me because he was an athlete prior to his career. Yeah. And it's so cool because he does like a little bit of singing, like in Moana. He does a little acting, like, or a little, he's in it. Acting. And I love that, like that he was able to kind of take his athletic side and like be able to transfer it over into the entertainment space. And, there weren't a lot of Asian people for me personally where I was like, oh, like I want to be like them growing up. Cause I honestly, I think Bruno Mars was the only one who I could really somewhat relate to, but he's also a dude. So like when Blackpink came out, that really inspired me. Like I saw them in concert. They do the dancing and they do all like the, in my opinion, like bad bitch energy type music. And that's pretty much like, it felt like gymnastics. Like that type of music felt like that energy that I had when I was competing. And when they came out, that's when I really was like, okay, I can do this too. Because again, like don't think I've seen a female Asian like person in the industry ever when I was growing up. Like I looked up to like the Spice Girls, but there was just no Asian figure. And so I just it felt possible, but it also felt impossible because I don't know like where I would have fit in. Like I don't speak Chinese, exactly. And so, and then when I saw Blackpink, I'm like, okay, it just kind of sparked something in me to be like, okay, I can do a mold myself and like just still inspire people who like the community who is supporting me. And I think that really helps me to move forward with my music. But Blackpink really inspires me just, I think, with the performance value. Whenever I go into the studio, I love writing songs and visualizing like what it's going to look like on a performance aspect, because that's always what I'm in the back of my mind. I'm writing songs to perform. Like that is where my songwriting and my artistry, that's where I lean towards. So I love like artists like Bruno Mars, Blackpink, and I love Ariana Grande because she does have like a mix of music where it's kind of like, she does like a 7 Rings where she's like doing more like R&B, but then she'll do like really pretty ballads. And I grew up singing classical, like that's where when you go into singing lessons, like they would give me like the Latin like classical stuff. So it's been cool to like, I take musical, like, I don't know, influences all the time. Like I listen to a lot of music and I see what's out there, but I also remember like, I want to do what's exciting for me in the studio, because at the end of the day, like that one day, hopefully be like a trendsetter for something else, or like it'll help me, to be able to stand out from everybody. But those artists particularly, like anyone who can perform, like put on a good performance, I love those artists. Yeah,
I think like I heard Pretty Please, and like I definitely hear kind of like that Blackpink influence is now that you say it, and like some of the others, like it's definitely like that big capital P pop kind of music. And like, I feel like, especially in this day and age and like this year, especially like that kind of sound and style of pop is making a like big comeback with like obviously like Sabrina Carpenter and Chaperones and like all these other artists. So like, what do you kind of think about like the current state of pop music, and like, are you like liking what you're hearing? Are you liking what artists like kind of doing, and that's like kind of inspire what you want to do?
Yeah, like again, I think I love what those artists are doing, because I think what they're doing is unique to them, and it's kind of it really is very particular. Like I think Chapel Roan, she does a lot of like 80s, and even like Sabrina Carpenter has been pulling like 80s style, and it's cool because I think right now pop has no limits, and in the pop industry, like a lot of things are considered pop nowadays, and so I think for me it's cool to. I like, again, just to have fun. Like if I want to pull a Beatles song, like, yeah, screw it. Like, let's do it in the studio. Like, why not? Or if I want to pull like, say like, Black Eyed Peas, like, and reference them just because I grew up with them and they were really hyped to me. And, I love referencing like older songs as well, just cause it has like, people loved it for a reason, but I also love adding like my own personal flair to it. And it's just cool. Like, seeing all the different artists really going and showing their personality in their songs. Like I love that. And I think this is a cool way for me as an athlete where I never really got to show my personality, I would say, you know, cause you're kind of mute when you're competing, but like, but now it's cool to see like a whole different side and like really showcase that. And I think that's what artists are doing really well today. Like, being able to really get personal and share like what they're doing and not kind of fold into a mold. I think that's what I think a lot of artists are doing. They're not folding into a mold. They're molding what they want to do. And it's awesome when they can get, you know, when people support it.
Yeah, I definitely think like the pop star is like definitely like back now, especially like this year and going forward. So Pretty Please, Money on Me out, kind of what has the response been to those first two songs, and like, you know, how are people like reacting to it?
It's cool. It's as a new artist, like I'm considered an indie artist, and as a new artist, it's been really cool, like hearing the personal response, like in my circle. And also I think like my online too, when they're like, when's new music coming out? I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And when I went on tour, I had some of the little gymnasts come up to me being like, no, we love your song. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, I don't know, like, again, it's a numbers game, right? So you just see the numbers. You don't really know who's actually listening to it, but it's so cool. I saw a video recently. Someone in China, I think, or in Asia made a dance to Pretty Please. And it was just so awesome. Like, I thought that was the coolest thing ever, that I was able to influence, you know, some of the girls and them to make a dance and all that stuff. And especially, that's why I want to release Money on Me during tour, because it really brought me back to like when I was a gymnast and that hype music and all that stuff. And it's cool to see all the little kids like dancing to it and them enjoying it. Obviously, it's very nerve wracking, like releasing for the first time. Like, I was so nervous, and I feel like you just put it out there for the universe to just
see what happens,
do what it does. Yeah, but it's not like competing where you're like, oh, I'm in front of an audience. You can like hear the reactions. Like I've been cheered for, I've been booed for. Like you can hear it. I don't know. You hear the reaction in real time, but this is kind of like a long game where you put it out and maybe someone will hear it like 6 months later, and you just never know. But it's been really cool. Like when people come up to me and they just say they love my music because it's so personal to me. And I love that I'm able to create something that someone else would love to enjoy, because that's the whole reason. Like I want to write where if you're listening to it, you feel like you're on top of the world, or you feel confident, or you feel like you can do anything. It's like, as much as I'm writing about my personal story, I want someone else, when they listen to it, that they feel like they're empowered. Yeah.
And I guess, do you have like your fan base? Do you have like a lot of crossover between like followers from like when you were a gymnast to like people coming and just discovering you from music? Like, is there kind of crossover between the two?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool because so when I was an athlete, I started a YouTube channel like in my last year and I called them penguins. So I have some people like in my, comments, they'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm an OG penguin." Or like it's just cool that they'll bring up terms from like what I said. Like we had this Asian group and then we had of course our honorary, German. We were the dumpling squad and I had like made a dumpling line, but I'm like and this one little girl came up to me, she's like, "Can I be a dumpling?" And she like wasn't Asian. I'm like, "Of course you can be a dumpling. Like anyone can be a dumpling." So but it's cool because like I'll have people in my comments be like, "I'm an original like penguin," or like "I was in the dumpling squad," and like and then I'll have new people be like, "Oh my gosh, like I didn't know you were a gymnast, like I love your music, like when are you coming out with more?" And I didn't know you would sing. And then I have my like older fans be like, "She always sang," or like it's just really cool to see like that community build over time. And it's really cool to take people on my journey. I love sharing my journey with people because it's hard. Like I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get into it. And I had no one really guiding me, especially in entertainment. And my parents are accountants. They don't know like anyone in the field. So a lot of it was me putting it out. I want to do this and be like just meeting whoever and them saying, "Well, I have this friend," or me getting on social media and just showing what I can do and really trying to, showcase that part of me. And so I love sharing my journey because, maybe someone else who wants to get into it and they don't know how to get into it. And so if I can like help them out in that type of way, then I definitely would have liked that when I was younger. So
yeah. I mean, your journey's been very, very unique to this point. Obviously, like not many people get the opportunities that you've gotten and have gone as far as you've gotten. And then like now you're doing music and crossing over to those things. So it's very, very cool to see.
Thank you.
What are your plans, I guess, like for the future? Like you having live performances, we're having an EP album, like new songs, like what's your plans for the future?
Yeah, so I have a lot more music coming out, which I'm really excited about. And so a lot of it is kind of like the big planning of it all. I'm still learning, the space and everything, but I want to work towards an EP. So that's kind of what I've been, saying. And but I'll definitely be releasing like singles and new music along the way, which I'm really excited about. And I'm excited to get back into the studio and hopefully do more live performances because that's something that I want to get more under my belt. I had my first live performance at VidCon and I performed in front of a crowd, but like it's more like the national anthem, like not really a performance, I would say. But VidCon was my first performance, and I definitely, there's lots of things I could work on with like vocal stability and all that stuff. And so I really want to improve my craft next year and work hard in that sense to, again, just be the best artist that I can be. So when I am able to perform, I'm able to put on a damn good performance. That's the plan.
Well, I'm sure that work ethic that you've gotten from being an athlete and gymnast will definitely help you out in that kind of aspect of, improving those certain things in your performances.
Yes, I hope so. And I hope that, everyone takes away that like it's a growing experience. So that's why I want them to follow my journey, because it's like I'm going to be improving. Like I started literally from the bottom, so I will be like improving, in certain ways. So I think it'd be cool to see that, it's not like an overnight thing. Like it's a grind. And also too, like no one can take away your work ethic. That's what I say. Like, people can judge a performance, people can judge whatever they want, the music, whatever, but no one can take away, like, say, the work ethic you put into it. And I want people to know that, because I think the biggest fear that a lot of people have is just trying. And it's just trying to do something different. And because they're scared of getting judged. And I want to be that person, like, going from gymnastics to this big switch. And if I don't put on the best performance, it's okay, because like we're working hard towards a better performance. So yeah, exactly. It's a process. And that again, it's like a constant reminder that it's okay to do something that you're like a little scared of, because you're doing it for you at the end of the day. And, it's awesome when people support you and you can give back to them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. Really enjoyed talking to you. Really enjoyed like learning your whole story and like your whole process and how you got here, and really enjoyed the songs Pretty Please and Money on Me, and like can't wait to see like what else, you know, you have coming in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.